Welcome back to Badge. That's me. Anyway, everybody buys all this junk and you think you don't have to fix it. It's not true. I'm going to tell you why. Because now we put brakes, we use the brakes in this quite a bit. So every, I wouldn't say quarter, but usually every spring and fall I'll take the brakes apart and I'll show you how to, the special grease I use for them, and you just check them out. Because the thing is that you can have all the brakes you want, and well, I took it to Johnny and Johnny did the brakes on it and now it won't stop going down the hill. So that's why you have to take it apart and make sure you know what you got for brakes, if they're good, bad, or ugly. So that's what we're going to do today. What we're going to do is brakes on the truck. Now, I'm going to tell you what I'm looking for. Now, what it was coming over top of the by cam loops, I could smell gear oil. So now everybody thinks that it's going to be a seal gone or something like that. No, it's not. You're going to smell gear oil, but you're not going to be able to see the leak, and that's what I'm going to show you. So what you do is you take the caliper away from the brake system, you pry it back so you can get the brakes off, two 13mm wrenches, bolts, and you take them off. And then you take the 7/8, go get a cheap wrench, the cheapest one you can buy, or Canadian Tire, whatever, because Canadian Tire will take it. And then you just take it, beat it with a hammer that way, and that'll loosen the bolt up, because you can't get a socket, you can't get nothing in there. So you just loosen up that way and get it off. Because what you have to do is take off the caliper mount so you can get at the rotor. Now, when you buy a truck, remember what I told you about the truck was buy something that you can work on. Now, the good thing about this, you take the two bolts out, and this is a caliper slide. Now, this is what we're after. See this little faint bit of oil right here, okay? And see, this is a slider. See the rust there? And no rust there. That means this one's hanging up, this one's not. Same as on this side. So we're going to clean that all up and fix it, okay? Now, when you buy a truck, make sure that you do your work and find out that they got floating hubs. And what I mean full floating hubs is that the axle and the hub are separate from the drum, right? A full floating axle, all the weight goes on the hub, not the axle. On a 3/4 ton or something like that with a axle, the weight of the wheels on the axle. See, there's no weight on the axle at all, none whatsoever. And then you take the rotor off, right? Now, this is what you're looking for right here. Right here. See this grease here? Now, I'm just going to back up a bit and look at the brake shoes, right? All it does is it puts a little drop oil every once in a blue moon. When you really get pulling, like down in Arizona and that, it puts a drop oil down on the brake shoes, gets on the drum, and then when you start using the brakes, it heats up and, you know, the story goes on. The seal's not leaking. To tell you if the seal's leaking, this is what it's been since I was a baby. A seal leaking has to make one drip in 1 minute. Clean this up. We'll clean all this up, and then we'll clean the vent. And 90% of the time, you'll find the vent's plugged. I already cleaned this vent out, so it's all right. It wasn't totally plugged, but it was a little slow, but I got it cleaned out now. So all you do is take brake clean and clean this all up. These are the shoes on the truck, and there's no grease on them at all. There's nothing wrong with them. Now, if these were soaked with grease and oil, that's a different story. First, you have to look at it and see if they penetrated it, right? Clean this all up, and we'll put it all back together, and it'll be good for another 3 years, or whatever. Because if you really think about a seal, it's really movement that makes a seal leak, not the seal. Very seldom is the seal the problem. It's usually a movement, like a bearing loose or something like that. So when you got it apart, you just check and make sure it's not moving. This one's not moving. So that's all we're going to do. We're going to clean this all up, clean the drum up, clean everything up. We're going to lube up I'll show you how to lube up the brake pads when we do it. And I'll get back to you. I know you better get a coffee for the last part because I know it's going to be really interesting. So go get a coffee. Okay, look inside here. We cleaned it all up. Now, I use just ordinary old bulk brake clean because by the can, it's like $4 a can. So I use a bulk. So you just clean all that in there, get all the oil out of it, right? And make sure there's no oil on it at all. And then back in here, you clean that slime that was in there. That's all. That's just fine now. Just like that. See the shoes? See the color of the shoes? When L backs up, you'll see the color of the shoes. It's like a light brown, right? And if they were oil, it would still look like oil. They don't even look like oil because there's no oil on them. All it was just dust and oil, right? That's why you can clean them up and get away with it. Now, if you clean these up and they still got oil on them, then you have to replace them, right? That's just common sense. But there's no oil on these. I never even heated them up with a torch, which you can do. You just clean them up, and if they come clean, good. If they still have oil in them, then you have to get new ones. But just remember, people, it's only an emergency brake. And how many times you used it, I'm not even going to go there. So that's all I'm saying. It's emergency brake. So, okay, I'll leave you at that, and I'll put this together, and then I'll show you some other stuff. Okay, this is on the brake slider. Now, this is where the caliper bolts to right here, and they go in here, okay? Now, see this one here? See that black garbage? That's the stuff you have to take out, because that's how it makes the brakes hang up, is this black stuff on here. Like, this is what it looked like when I took it apart, okay? So now what you do is you clean these out, spotless. You just put a little brake clean in there, and then put that in and out with no dirt on it, okay? So that's what you're after. So you clean these things up, and then this is what I use. This stuff is, I've never seen a brake lock up with it yet. This stuff here, you put this on all the sliders, all the shoes, pads, everything. Because see what the thing is? It's called silicone brake lubricant. It's good. This got Teflon in it, so it's a little bit better. But that's all you use. That there. Okay? I'll get back to you in a minute. So, okay, I got this cleaned out now. See, there's no dirt on them. Very clean. Well, that's the color of the pin, right? But the shiny spot. This is, I can't even tell you how important this is. Like, this is super important, especially for you guys in the backyard doing it. And I can call you backyard mechanics because that's where I started. It's nothing to be embarrassed about, believe me. You put some silicone on it, push it in there, and you just make sure it works good, right? That's all you do. Put a little bit of silicone, not a whole bunch, you just need a little bit. Because you put too much, it'll hydraulic and then it won't work right. Just put that in there. That's good for the next set of pads, okay? And then here you get some more. Now the pads don't need a whole bunch. All you really do is put a bit on the sliders, right? That's all you're doing, is put the silicone on the sliders. Because that's the only piece that really touches is the slider, right? Where it goes into here, that's it. Okay, that's all you do. I'll get back to you. Okay, now, brake pads. There's so many different ideas about brake pads. I'll tell you the right way. These are what they call anti-rattle springs. The only thing they do is that when you, because what happens is a brake applies and then when you take it off, the O-rings, the square section O-ring in there draws the piston back so the pad can be loose, and this stops it from rattling. This is the brake pad. I forgot to mention this in the other one. These are the wear indicators. Now, on a lot of Chevys and that, you'll get a squealing mark on your brakes and then it'll go away. Well, what that is this here breaks off. So this here, when this here touches your rotor, your brakes are wore out. Not when it hits the pad, when it hits this wear bar, right? So if you look down through the caliper, you can see this crack here, right? Almost all the pads got a crack in them like that, a slit. Now when that, if you look down and that's gone, chances are your brakes are wore out. So, but if you're not sure, usually use silicone, but I got these, so I'll use it. Now what you want to do, if they're old ones like this, because you notice I'm using old shoes because nobody thinks you can do it, and I'm just, of course, proving everybody wrong like I always do. But just put some silicone on there. Learn so much stuff today, your head's exploding. But that's all you do. Just put some silicone. You'll see where the fingers touch it, right? You put it on the end. It's the only really important part, is you put it on the end. Because this is metal to metal or metal to stainless. So you have to make sure it'll slide. Now, I know that some people are gonna find this hard to believe, but when you put the brake pad in there and you line it up and it slides in there with your finger and you push it in and the pad comes out because it's not binding, you never ever put pads in with a hammer. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. You never put them in with a hammer. You always put them in so that they're finger tight. Put the pad in. Make sure the pad's like that. See? That's all. And then you just hold them there. Squeeze the pads together. Take your caliper and slide it over. Right? Sort of. Like that. Now, the big bolts you put Loctite on. These you do not. If you put Loctite on them, well, I'm not saying you don't put Loctite on them. I'm saying if you put Loctite on it, you'll wish the hell you never. That's all I'm saying. So you just put them in, because they're only a little bolt anyway, so it's not really going to save much by putting Loctite on them. And then you put these two bolts in and you tighten them up. Now, the big one, I'll show you to tighten the big one up. The big bolts, remember you took your wrench, my Mastercraft, super duper, I can do almost anything with wrench, and my little hammer. And just give it a whack that way. Go get your torque wrenches and go check the internet, and I'll be damn close. I'll be within 5 pounds. But anyway, so you tighten that up, tighten your bolts up here. So you got the silicone on, you got it all silicone. The pad silicone, the slider silicone, you got the sliders and the calipers silicone, so everything's all free and go. Now, when you tighten these bolts up, which I'm going to show you something that nobody does, but I'm going to show you anyway, and you can just laugh all the way to the bank, because you put these two little bolts in here. Now, you got the caliper pushed in, right? Because you have to push the caliper in to get it off a bit, or sometimes. If you can take your caliper and do that after it's done, you did a good job. That's the way it's got to be, like that. If it can't move like that, you might as well take it apart, because it ain't going to work. One side will jam and it'll just take the pads out. That's what you do. If it does that, you're good. Anti-rattle spring's got to be in, and that's all I'm going to tell you. This wheel's done. And how much do we spend? 0, the magic word. All we did was cleaned it up, because that's all it needed was cleaning up. Like everybody thinks all this new shit that comes out is different than your dad's 1944. There ain't a bit of difference in it. It's the same thing. Take the wheel apart, clean it up, put it all back together. That's all I'm going to say on brakes. If you have any questions at all, don't be scared to ask, because you know I'll give you the answer. And all the mechanics out there that are cringing over the cleaning up the brake shoes, get over it. Because there is I would say 20% of the brake shoes that are replaced in North America are done because people are too lazy to clean them. That's all I'm saying. And when you get it all back together and it slides like that, Bob's your uncle. Have a nice day. Okay, we did a brake job on the old Dodge here. Well, not a brake job. We cleaned it up and serviced the back brakes. That's what it was called, servicing the back brakes. Clean them up, take the rust off, clean out the little bit of dust and oil and crap in there, clean it up. That's what we're doing. Now, when you put the wheel on a brake, like a rotor or something like that, I'm going to show you how to do it. So you put the tire on, right? And you put these on by hand. Not by a gun, you put them on by hand. Okay? Now when you're doing brakes, especially brand new brakes, and you put a rotor on, and especially a rotor that's paper thin, like I'm talking a half an inch or so, or it's where the rotor is, you don't get it very much if the rotor is not attached to the hub. But if it's attached to the hub, what you have to do is you tighten the wheel nuts up across from each other. Never go in a circle. Always go across like that and do it all together at once. If you go like that, you're going to twist and bend a rotor. Just like that. If you go in and do that with a fixed rotor, you might as well just take it and toss it in the garbage because it's going to be bent. And the way to know that is when you drive down the road, the pedal will go doo 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 doo. So that's how you get away from the gun. I don't really care. And you just start here, there, 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 there. Now, while we're on the wheel thing, everybody goes on about torquing them. Now, what did I tell you about torque? 1,000 times. Doesn't matter what it is as long as it's the same, right? So that gun I went until it clicked once. I heard the click, click, click. That, I know they're all the same. But I will retorque this wheel. But that's how you put the wheel on. If you do it in a circle, you'll bend the rotor. Guaranteed. I don't even have to tell you, or the wheel will warp or something like that. Because these wheels aren't that really that great, right? So you gotta just take your time and do it right. Remember, across from each other. I don't care if you use a star or a octagon or whatever you use, but make sure you do one the other side, one the other side, and just keep going like that all the way around, and you won't have a problem. All the wheel nuts start by hand. If you can't start them, you never start them with a gun because you'll cross thread them, okay? Not that I know anything about that, but I'm just telling you. Okay? That's all I got for you. Bob's your uncle. I hope you have a good one, and I hope you got something out of it. If you didn't, play it back again and you'll learn something else. Okay, see right there? That is on the left side. That is speed sensor for left side rear. Now see all the magnetic stuff on that? The little dust in that? There, see there's no gap hardly. See how the gap is gone? Okay. So with that is why this wheel or the back axle thinks that it's stopped, because it can't tell how fast it's going with that metal. So that's why you just take it apart and clean it out. That's all we're doing. So this is the left side. The left side had no oil on it all or anything. So what we're going to do is just put it back together. It's just fine. Clean it up, put it back together. Bob's your uncle. Okay, I forgot to mention something while we're doing the brakes there. We had a problem with the Dodge. Remember, I think I told you before, I was skating the front wheels, like they'd seem like they'd skip. And when I cleaned this wheel, there was a piece of dust between, some dirt between the wheel sensor, because this Dodge, a lot of Fords and that don't have, well, the newer stuff does, but a lot of them use the rear axle, only one wheel, or the pinion or something like that. This Dodge has got one on each side. And it got a little bit of dirt in between the sensor and the hub. Well, that, when you step on the brakes, it thinks it's not moving. So what does it do? It puts more brakes on the front. So remember I was telling you it was always hard on when I had the trailer on to stop the trailer sometimes? That's why. There's a piece of dirt in there. So that's why you have to take it out every 6 months and clean and service your brakes, basically. That's what you have to do. It's just stuff you have to do, because we're running on the desert and you get dust and all that, and it gets built up there. And then if you don't get that air gap between your wheel sensor and your hub, the wheel, it'll think it's locked when it's not. That's why we had a couple issues with it. One was locking the front. We've always locked the front wheel, and when I noticed when Al was in put the axle lock in, it wasn't working right. And that's why, because it always thought this wheel was locked up. So we'll take the other side apart and we'll see what it's like now.